extremely excited to have this conversation. It's going to be, in the words of Linwood in one of our prep sessions, a transparent conversation about the Black media space, Black-owned, Black-targeted, etc. I just want to kick it off. As we go through the questions, please introduce yourselves and make sure folks know where you come from and who you are. But just wanted to jump right into the topic, right? Over the last couple of years, there's a pretty substantial increase in the amount of investment in Black media and amount of investment declaration that brands and agencies are making. So as we shift and are looking to have this be a long-term change, what do you hope that these brands and agencies focus on in order to insist that it is long-term? And anybody who wants to jump in.
Ladies first, please. Okay, I'll go ahead and go first since I have the mic. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charlotte La Niear, and I lead our multicultural media at Procter & Gamble. When I think about what do we need to make this change systemic, I focus on, in our company, we look at what are the processes and systems that we need to continue to drive and change. So that can be anything from when we think about hiring systems, are we continuing to drive the right representation, all the way to what are we putting in place such that we can consistently have the right type of level and engagement with Black-owned and multicultural media suppliers.
I guess we're going in order. Linwood Bibbins, CEO of Reach TV. Thank you for saying that. When I think about it, I think about how can we create and make sure that our media lives up to any other standards that any other media has. So I think the next couple of years is about investing in those KPIs, those matrix, those things that allow the media to be equal as far as that. And then I think that we have to demand and really show brands to invest in us catching up. And I think that investment comes in multiple forms: content, technology, infrastructure, what have you. And then we'll get to the deliverables of the KPIs that are necessary.
Caroline Wanga, CEO of Essence Communications. You won't find us disagreeing a whole lot on this stage, so everything's going to be additive, if you haven't imagined. I think there's two things that I would say of utmost importance. I think the first of those is there has to be a serious mindset shift about what Black means. Black is not a segment. It's not a strategy for your February. It is not what you do when you're in trouble or somebody dies, right? And the reason why it's important to articulate that is because particularly the brand that I represent, but every brand up here can take the same claim, when we talk about the role that the Black woman plays, she's the CEO of home and community. And that's not just Black homes and community. You would buy a Kleenex Beyonce sneezed on for $1 million because Beyonce sneezed on it. If Katy Perry sneezed on it, you'll pay $500,000. The point is engaging with the Black community as the drivers of culture, as the ones who are going to close the equity gaps and accelerate in the places where they've been limited, but are also going to be unapologetic about celebration. And when those things start to happen with the Black woman and in Black culture, you will start to see the remainder of culture shift in the same way. Any strategy you have for engagement with Black that is not fully engaging in all that we do to drive and spotlight and strengthen culture is incomplete. And as long as we continue to be a segment, as long as you don't take the mindset of talking to us as the CEOs of community and home and culture like you do the white CEOs of companies, you will continue to not get the most out of it. And unfortunately, it's not going to be a race that you'll be able to stay ahead of. You will work your ass off, you'll keep moving forward, and we'll pass you up. The choice is yours. I'm not telling a lie. Don't believe me, just watch.
Thank you.
I don't want to go after her right now, so.
We're all together. Remember when I said we together?
I'm Duran Guidry, co-founder of Players TV. We're an athlete-owned media company with about 55 plus athletes that's invested in our company. Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade, Damian Lillard, Carmelo Anthony, many more. And we're about 200 million households. Not the same households of ESPN. I think it's important that we educate brands on the real reason why ESPN has scale, because they have their legacy distribution. We are not legacy. We are what they call a total addressable marketplace of eyeballs. We bring eyeballs to different marketplaces from different places with athletes and influencers. And I think that what we want to do at Players TV is to really sit down and have real meaningful conversations with brands. I think brands need to have real roundtable conversations to really understand what the community really needs and what they really want. That's the same community that's buying your products, right? So like me, example, my co-founder is a Caucasian guy from Boise, Idaho, okay? Idaho potatoes, right? He has no clue what the black community goes through, but what he does very well, he shows his humility and humbleness to say, hey, help educate me. And if we can have brands that humble themselves and really sit down and have a really authentic, meaningful conversation to really understand the communities that you guys are trying to reach, I think in that way, the consumers that you're targeting will also align with that mission as well, because consumers are getting smart now. They know what brands are willing to align with the mission and what have you, because everything's now public. And I hate that we're on this panel right now, because at the end of the day, it took George Floyd to die, unfortunately, to get us here, right? And I want to make sure that we're never going to lose sight of what the mission is, but we can all do our part by coming together and really educating one another, but also making impact through the stories that we tell, the communities that we serve, and then also not be labeled as a traditional media outlet and be looked at as the next generation of media, because now athletes and artists now know their power now. And that's the reason why you can go to Portland Trailblazers Instagram, see they got 2 million followers. You go to Dame Lillard's Instagram account, he has 10 million followers. The numbers don't lie off a snapshot, okay? I think it's really important about brands not stop buying the league rights and start understanding these are the athletes that make it happen for the brands and the artists and the influencers. So yeah, too hard to go after her though, but I'm gonna pass it along over here though. There you go. Thanks.
Gary Kwashi, founder and CEO of Pod Digital Media. We are the first and the largest multicultural podcast network in the country. We work with over 400 podcasters, both from the AA community and the Latinx community, and we give our advertisers access. I mean, to piggyback, I think it's the mindset, the shift needs to happen, right? Because now as Black-owned media companies, we are trying to position ourselves so we can get in those media plans at WPP, at Omnicom, and all those places, right? But we can't get there if we don't have the access. Even though we're well positioned, we have the reach and scale. We have the audience that has the $3.1 trillion of buying power, and we know that audience is valuable, but we need the access. But that access doesn't happen if the mindset, if the shift doesn't happen. And that's what we, on our end, as Black-owned media companies, we have to keep educating. Again, the media planet, that's 22, that's from Idaho, Boise, right? We have to educate them as to the power of the multicultural segment. We will do that, but we can't do it if we don't have the level of access that we need. So we're certainly asking for the mind shift, the mindset and the shift to happen, for us to see success.
Anybody in here from Boise? No? Okay, just making sure. Oh, there's. Oh, there you go. Sorry, brother. Sorry. No, your vote doesn't count here. I don't know if you... What's up, South by? How are you? Are you good? Are you good? Come on. We are here in person. You guys exist. I'm not on mute. Did anybody hear the speech that I gave at dinner? The opening dinner? So for those that didn't, I just want to reiterate, that was a long speech. I'm not going to give that, don't worry. I just want to say that it's so important to support our industry events and those that support us and give us platforms that we can grow in knowledge, but in career, and have the discussions around tough topics. So I just hope you continue. For those that do business here, don't stop sponsoring. I'm sure Mark won't let you. Feel free to pressure the price though and let him, no, I said that. I'm very proud of this event. I was the sponsor of this event. I brought them here 10 years ago, kicking and screaming, and to see that it's back now and what it's become and how important it is to the brand community. And what they do most is service all the brand community, not just the CMOs, but the directors, the managers, those on the come up, those that have come up. And so that's important. The journey that I've been on, so I know it says Bond Adventures there, but I'm co-founder and chief strategy officer of Group Black, and I'm sure many in here have heard of it, have seen it, or are hearing about it. I'm going to talk about what I think is the opportunity, but more importantly is why it came to be. So I was having lunch with my co-founder, Travis, in Miami, and he said, all these companies are making pledges to invest in Black-owned media. And he said, but I'm not eligible. Here's a Black founder who has a company that the next valuation would be $1 billion, he's not eligible because he's not 51% owned. Now, I get that, by the way, to some extent, but it also made me think, well, what does the black media landscape actually look like? And we began to look at it, and it was nascent at best. And just to give you some numbers, all the commitments tally up to about $25 billion year over year that will be invested in black-owned media. If we're lucky, there's $1 billion worth of inventory. And the sad thing is that even more than that, there's a few powerhouses, Essence, which is part of our collective, and I love Essence, and I was at the table when it was purchased, and so I'm very proud of that. And Rich returned it to black female ownership, which is the most amazing thing ever. And I mean, but it is a mindset shift, because when we were buying it, I won't say who, but we had gone through all the diligence. We're in like the 4th meeting, and somebody was like to Rich, can you really afford to buy this? He was like, excuse me? He was like, yeah, next question. I was like, this guy's making you rich, and you're asking him, can he afford it? But it's a mindset shift. It was crazy. So what we decided to do was we said, okay, how do we invest in the pipeline? Because the other piece that's missing is that nobody's investing in the pipeline. If you really think about a lot of the media businesses that are digital that exist today, they all were venture-backed, and they had friends and family rounds. You know what? I have a lot of friends and family, but if me asking them for $50,000, it just doesn't happen in the black community. So we don't have the friends and family round, and then we don't have access to the capital, and then there's no investment, and then we get hit with, you guys aren't big enough. Oh, I know, because it's just me and this credit card trying to get this job done, and you guys are telling me you can't spend because I'm not big enough. So we said, no, that's not gonna work, dude. So we built a business where our singular goal is to reinvest in our member companies and help them grow. We realized that when you really look at the black media landscape, it really needs 3 things, which is scale content creation, access to technology, and distribution. And the most important thing in this game is capital. So right now, and look, I was on the buyer side, and I tried to do this with tech startups, and the agency was like, when I tried to do it mobile, they were like, no, we're not calling 50 people. Sorry, dude. I got a drunk lunch to go to. I got some cigars to smoke. I'm calling one person and giving all the money to them. So nobody was going to take the time to call all. So we tried to aggregate them and give a single point. But the biggest thing that we try to do is continue to put the pressure so that these commitments are actually coming in and coming through the community and being reallocated and invested into the member companies, also using those voices and finding scaled opportunities to grow those voices and create net new inventory. So I think that when you look at the landscape, that is the biggest challenge, is that and the other last piece, and I'm gonna shut up, is that a lot of people, and we don't believe this, but think of black owned as black targeted. Off the gate, that means you can only aim 12% of the population. That's all you got. And it's like, no. If Viacom can own BET, we're gonna own MTV. So just so you guys know that. So we see it as black ownership is much broader than black targeted, but at the same time, reinvesting in a community that has been underinvested and has been undervalued, pressured on CPMs, all those things. We're gonna go on for this. I'm done, sorry. I might be done for the panel.
As always, Bonin makes a perfect segue to actually the next topic, which is black-owned versus black-targeted. This is the conversation that is excessively happening in this space right now. Dollars are coming in, agencies and brands are making commitments and saying they are going after black-owned, and sometimes also wanting to market to the black audience. Black-owned companies also serve entire mainstream populations in addition to only black audiences. So my question for our members of the panel, how does your brand or how does your company handle this conversation? How do you see it? And do you feel like the distinction is necessary?
Yes, so we start looking at what are the goals for the brand. So really it goes to, if you have a share gap with black consumers, you likely need to invest in black targeted media. And it literally is just that simple, right? If that's not the case, okay, then you should be using a variety of partners no matter what. And so, as we talked about earlier, let's say Reach TV reaches everyone. Reach TV should be in the consideration set when we're talking about growing any segment of our brands. And so again, it just goes back to basically what is the goal of the brand.
Right. I just want to say Charlotte is being very humble. I mean, the work that she's done to invest in this space and the continued vision that they have, yeah, I really, and And the fact that they even, and I know this sounds basic, but that there's even a distinction in their organization between Black-owned and Black-targeted is well far beyond where many brands are, just to be brutally honest. And so I just applaud your work, and we're happy that you're in the community.
I'm with you on that. I second it. We had a pre-call, and I was very impressed by the entire team, Mandy as well. It was just an eye-opening call. For me, when we were building this network, I was always looking at content drives commerce. I was looking at building a business, not about Black or not. It was about building a business. And content driving commerce, I wanted to build a network where $2 billion in revenue is generated every month, and that was in the airports. So it doesn't matter about, the target. It was that we can drive business, and for a P&G or for whatever brand. The thing that drives me a little bit nuts is that, we are getting KPIs, I'm getting changed on what I can do and what I can't do. And for 5 years, I've had the most sought after audience, and people weren't letting me in the door. It took craziness in this country to get me an opportunity to be in the upfronts. And that's how I can be on the same level as an NBC or anybody else. When you have predictive revenue as a startup, it changes your damn business. It's a complete game changer. And so I'm competing with people that have that for 5 years, and we didn't. It's like running on a credit card when somebody else has a $2 million line of credit. You're not gonna win. And so that was a game changer for us, getting into that upfront, and it changed my entire business. So, for me, I think there's a lot of giving us access, but I'm not asking you for anything. I'm asking for some empathy and understanding, but my business itself warrants your damn investment, warrants you to pay attention, and warrants you to give us the access that we damn well deserve. And side note for me, really pissed me off because I've been successful and sold other companies, and people are telling me to prove the model. I know people that run the same exact type of business that I do, who've raised 100 million plus, doing same thing I'm doing with nowhere near the success as me. So sometimes I watch that, it fuels me. As you can see, I'm a little hyper. It fuels me, but it's something that needs to be said. When Bonin said capital's a one thing that we don't get. And we're so used to bootstrapping that we bootstrap ourselves right out of business. And that's something we can't let continue to happen. So that's my piece.
Yeah, I mean, it'll continue to be additive. I think some points that I would add is we believe that economic inclusion is a human right. And so whether or not this is shade to the Black targeted organizations, I don't care. What I am gonna say is when you are investing in Black-owned entities, what you are doing is changing the wealth story for Black community. And your impressions don't do that, impact does. And impact is capital, impact is capacity, impact is commerce, impact is purpose, impact is access, impact is expertise. And so while you may have your own corporate logic for why you invest in Black targeted versus Black owned, I want to be really clear about what's truly different. The revolution must be financed. When you are not spending your dollars with Black-owned entities that are fully capable of performing at the level of all your other entities, I argue outperform because of who we serve, you are choosing to not engage in the work that brings Black wealth to life for Black community. You are choosing not to play a role in this idea that economic inclusion is a human right, and you are choosing not to make an impact on capital, commerce, and capacity. And I don't care how much you want to argue with me about that. When it goes to Black-owned, which is why those that are Black-targeted want to keep the ownership, they know how much money they're going to get. So don't play any other game about this. The Black-owned investment is about Black wealth creation. And Black wealth creation is something we are not apologetic about. He just talked about our friend Rich that was like, why are you asking me if I can buy this? I know what meeting I was coming to. I know, did you know who I was?
And I pulled up in the McLaren, yeah.
Right? With a hoodie, open toed shoes on, and some broken glasses that he needs to get fixed, but he's a billionaire. right? And so I want to be really straightforward about that because sometimes we tiptoe around this black targeted, black owned. If you are putting your dollars in black targeted, salute. If you're not putting your dollars in black owned, you're not making impact, you're getting impressions, and just own your position. The revolution must be financed. And if it's not going to black owned media entities that are fully capable of delivering at the scale or higher than what you get from others, then that's your fault, not ours. Because we're gonna keep moving, and even our friends at P&G, who we have this conversation all the time, we don't just buy black products, we buy Tide too. And so this isn't just about your media impact to black and the stuff you want black people to see. This is everything you sell and the fact that we buy it. And if you choose to put it somewhere else, don't complain when we come back at you.
No, his turn to go after her. You go after her. You go after her.
They never gonna let us back.
I can add on to the question.
That's why I'm staying on now.
I think one thing I'll add, I mean, it's hard to go after her now. I mean, she got it. But one thing I'll add is that we do want to challenge brands to, there is a difference between black owned and black targeted. If iHeartMedia has black effect and he has a black face, which is Charlemagne, which we love, right? But that's still iHeart. You know, it's not minority owned. When you have Pod Digital Media, which is us, as a multicultural podcast network that started the multicultural podcast network because we understand the power of audio. We also understand the power of the multicultural segment. Give us that opportunity and give us the opportunity so we can rate ourselves versus the shows that you have. So I think it's us challenging the brands like, when you're looking for vendors, are they minority certified? Do they have the certification? Ask those questions. It takes 1 minute to ask that question, and then you'll find the answer or not, whether or not they're 51% owned, or whether they're just black owned, or whether or not they're just black targeted. So again, that's, we just, again, when we have this conversation with those brands and we're saying, look, we're minority, so we are black owned, we are minority certified. The other vendors that you're using that's in the same space as us, are they minority certified? Did you do your due diligence? No, that's just a black face. It's not black owned. So yeah, we just want to keep challenging brands, and we just want to keep having those conversations. And then again, if we have to have it on a daily basis, we'll have it on a daily basis because again, the revolution must be finance, right?
So I'm fighting this fight every day. Being a young black man launching the first ever TV network owned by athletes. And if you look at the athletes that we have, Kyrie Irving, who's probably like Kanye West of basketball.
He is.
Very disruptive.
Kyrie, but man.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's part of lockstep too.
Yeah. So we have all these amazing athletes coming together because if you look at every team owner, they have one thing in their portfolio that's very in common. It is they all have TV networks in their portfolio. The Kroenke family owns Altitude Network. The Dolan family owns MSG Network. They all own networks in their portfolio. But they're leveraging the athletes that have the following and the audience around the world to drive behavior. And one thing, I'm fighting this fight every day right now. I'm literally flying to Phoenix, Arizona at 6 a.m. in the morning to be in Phoenix at 7:30 in the morning, have a big meeting with a major TV network that's begging to give us a $10 million term sheet for an investment. They just had a multicultural upfront literally 2 weeks ago, and it was all white executives pitching to brands why they should spend money with black content creators, but it was all white faces talking about it. That's not authentic, it's not genuine, and I think that part of education is that if I have an Asian business partner, I'm putting him at the forefront because I don't know his community like he does, right? And I think that right now I'm fighting this fight because I have to not lose these athletes that gave me the vision, the investment, the purpose to get behind it, to lead and represent their brands with trust. And I cannot go take a $10 million term sheet and sell out. We raised $3.1 million total from athletes only to launch the network. We're gonna do $20 million this year in revenue. With no outside VC capital. So that means I held out that long. We have a sexy product. No disrespect. Reach TV, who's one of our newest investors, he can't go out there and go get 50 athletes tomorrow because it took 4 years to go get on the flights, getting hotel rooms, pitching athletes on back-to-back games, begging for their money, missing your flights, the opportunity cost, the sweat we get to put in to get to where you are, and we got 3,000 hours worth of content, athlete content. So we can't be reduplicated at scale. You can never go get Kyrie Irving to go work for you. You will never see Kyrie Irving show up on ESPN with Stephen A. Smith yelling and degrading him and talking about how awful he is. Never gonna happen. So at the end of the day, I think it's important that we really take a chance to really sit back and say, hey, how do we collaborate? How do we actually truly innovate our communities, but also get brands to actually come together and say, look, we're gonna spend with Black owned. We don't target Black. Kyrie Irving, guys, as an example, he's a Nike signature athlete. That means is he has his logo facing the Nike store, Foot Locker store. He gets paid like $35 million a year from Nike. But you were to ask me what his Nike business does on a global scale and revenue, his Nike signature line, it does $850 million a year in global Nike sales. So if Procter & Gamble wants to come do business with Players TV and do a show with Kyrie Irving, we're gonna target all the Kyrie Irving super fans, because at the end of the day, he has a signature shoe called the Kyrie 7. There's usually 8 color options that come out. Whoever's a sneakerhead in here, anybody wear sneakers in here or sneakerheads? Anybody in here? Well, you buy sneakers and buy shoes, there's a color edition for each option, and that shoe is $120 per different color. There's 7 of those that come out a year. So do the math. You're talking about almost $800 to $900 a year that I'm buying Kyrie Irving's shoe every year. So that means that people are spending money for these athletes and getting behind them, and they have a cult-like following. So we know that we have the ability to not target Black. We target globally. Every audience, every neighborhood in Asia, Canada, everywhere. So we're not Black owned, we're not Black targeted, we're Black owned, and I'm fighting that fight every day to remain Black owned. And I'm willing to not sell out to lose the authenticity of what our business is supposed to stand for. So thank you for having us. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that was said, so I'm not really going to add that much except one nuanced detail. I'm definitely not going to add more than you, so that's why you're laughing. Yeah, remind me never to panel with her again. No, I'm joking. I love her.
We're together.
I think the challenge is, no, of course, but I think here's the reality is that the numbers, so when you really look at the numbers, it's 25 billion versus maybe, let's say, 1 billion of open opportunity, but let's really say it's only about 300 million of true spending right now. So first there's a $700 million gap that needs to be cleared just to meet where the companies are. But then there's a $24 billion gap that needs to be created, and these companies need the help, just like other companies have had help, to create that. What's gonna happen is that unless we stay focused as an industry, laziness will strike in. And what will happen is what one of the big agencies, I'll leave them nameless, put in their RFP, which I almost, I had to breathe after I read it. I was like, okay, calm down, Bon, and what they did was they said, look, you gotta work with, first and foremost, you have to work with our barter group, right? So everyone has a barter group, but everybody in here knows what that means, man. Like that's like the kiss of death. But okay, which on top of all that, you have to deliver the same value for 25% less because I'm gonna give you this money up front. But then to add insult to injury, the RFP said you have to be Black owned. That's great, 51%. Okay, so that's the right place. But you also have to only target Black people. So okay, so now you're telling me I gotta take 25% less money. I can only target a tiny fraction, and I should be happy because you're giving me the money up front. So I should tap dance to make, and that's the problem. And by the way, I lied. I lied, not 51% ownership. 51% of the money needs to make it into African Americans' hands, which means that any company can apply for this RFP. So what are you doing for me? All you're getting is a press release. You're not truly investing in the community. And so those are the things we have to be careful. I get why it's done because it's hard to deploy $25 billion, man. Trust me. And so they're gonna go to places that make it easy, which is scale. And so we need to figure out how, as a community, to stay focused on, we need to grow the pipeline of all minority-owned, women, Asian, Black, we're starting in Black here, but we see this as a model, but we're not the only issue. And the thing is ownership results in representation. So if you own, not even just if you sit behind the lens, if you actually own the lens, you're gonna make sure that it looks more like a diverse world. And that's why we think, the inclusion age hopefully is upon us. Sorry. All right, I'm not talking.
You can
we
say
have
anything
we have
you
time
want
for
to.
a couple questions. You want to go to questions, or do you
sure.
Want? Do you want to ask yours, and then I'll go?
Well, it's going to take a few minutes.
It could take a few minutes. Why don't I go to the audience?
No, only one of us gets to respond. How about we do that?
Let me ask this last question.
Yeah,
then
you
we'll
asked
go to
last question. Have your hand up if you have a question so I can come to you next.
Understanding of the market is part of what leads to an RFP that's a little confusing, right? That you're saying, hey, you're asking me to do this, this, and this, and take 25% less. So I want to talk about data. Data is considered a big inflection point and an opportunity, right, for all of minority media, but in particular Black. What are you either doing or what do you believe needs to be done in order to make sure that data really is that equalizer going forward? Because a lot of this does come down to dollars and cents.
So I coming from the tech background that I had, I've been watching this for the last 3-4 years. And when the upfronts came, I was on a bunch of the upfronts. I stayed on even though they told me to get off and watched the video. And I kept hearing them say, we're not going to worry about measurement. We're not going to worry about measurement. And then as soon as the calls were over, what's the measurements? And then that was the reason
They
for
weren't
not
worried
giving.
about it. They were just curious.
They were curious, exactly. Recently we get studied by Epicenter. We are in Nielsen. We have all the data points that it hits all the checkpoints for the agencies. But what I was thinking about was, and what we've been investigating is, we have 300 million anonymous devices. We have a platform that has first-party data from 12 different airlines. But what we've been able to do recently is track from your home to every single place that person goes. And then we were able to get the POS data from 5.5 million real time in every airport. So what I can do now is actually track where someone goes in their journey. But then we found a way to do pixels on sites. So I could tell you what percentage of my audience also goes to Essence. And then I could tell you where they go
Largest
here.
festival in the nation by per day attendance.
Exactly. So what we can do is, what we're looking to do with Group Black and in general is create a universal location intelligence that allows you to track where someone goes from their home and their entire journey and be able to give attribution all the way through the journey and create one standard set of data that we can all use. That is my personal goal. Has nothing to do with reach. Has more to do with me trying to democratize data in our benefit.
Unless you truly believe that a Black data point is worth less than a different community's data point. So all the work he just talked about matters if you consider them to be of equal weight. But if the impressions are not of equal weight based on mindset or other bias, then he's never going to meet your goals, but it has nothing to do with the numbers.
All right, let's go to the question.
Questions?
I'm never coming back, so now I got to get it all out.
Hi, my name is Rita Bautista. I'm the owner of Latina Podcasters Network. And as a startup CEO, I have a question for Caroline and for Charlotte. How do you keep your energy when you're a woman beating down doors regularly? As a Latina in this space, honestly, there hasn't been too many people that I can turn to say, okay, I'm gonna keep my motivation going through this. Luckily, I have access, so I've had the opportunity to connect to other women, but I love to ask this question specifically to both of you because it gets exhausting sometimes to always be population one beating down doors.
That's a great question. First, I think it starts my family history. Like, I feel like it's always been this way, right? So some of it's like the conditioning over time that prepares you, whether it be my uncle, my mother, my
Right.
grandmother, who was like the second youngest Black woman to own her own salon in St. Louis. Like, it's always been that way, right? But I think there's this, how do you maintain, right? Which is your question. One, for me, it's who I surround myself with. My team is here. I have an amazing team. And I do have to say, I think that we push each other because it is a greater purpose. Like, I will tell you, I believe this is my God-given purpose for what I am supposed to be doing right now. And so as a result of that, it gives me energy. I'm not going to say I don't get tired, but it does give me energy.
I would agree with what she said. What I would add is I have a self-compassion plan. It's a literal document. It articulates when I take breaks, what times I do things, how many events I go to, what happens after I come back from traveling, who I want to talk to, what I don't like, who I don't like, and here's why. Here's why. It might be in white font on white paper, but here's why. Because at the end of the day, I need to fulfill my purpose. I have the unmitigated gall to believe in a future that other people can't see, but if I'm not healthy, I won't get it done. And the world goes without. And so that self-compassion plan document, I actually give away. Because if I was good at it, I wouldn't need to write it down. So I give that to my peers. I actually give that to my boss. I give it to my admin. I give it to anybody who works with, for, and who I work with and for. And what I say to them is, you have the right to even disrespectfully help me stay committed to this plan. Love me more than I love myself, so that this purpose I'm supposed to bring into the world happens. And then what actually it does more of than keep me healthy is that the women around me understand how to build their purpose with self-compassion included. And so what I would offer to you is be clear about what it means for you to, I'm an introvert, contrary to popular belief. My social battery, my introversion comes in my social battery being drained. Like after this, I'm gonna disappear. Y'all gonna try to talk to me, ain't gonna be able to catch me because I have to go refuel. But I know that about myself. So tomorrow when I get back to New York, my admin has my day off because she knows these things drain me. And so I would just ask you to think about what are the things important to your health based on what you know about you. Codify those, share them with the people who will love you more than you love yourself, and let them take care of you so you can fulfill the purpose that you need to fulfill.
On that note, I think that's a great place for us to stop. Thank you to our panel very much.
The Manses can have one too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us for Brand Innovators. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and have a great afternoon. Great evening.